Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Business of Becoming podcast. I'm your host, Lori Kennedy, and this is episode number 48. And oh my goodness, was this episode on fire! Even though today's guest, Tommy Baker, and I just met, I felt like we really connected over the content of his book. The book is called The 1% Rule, and there are so many concepts and strategies in the book that I've worked really hard to implement into my life. Tommy is a writer, speaker, author, and coach, and the host of the Resist Average Academy, a top-rated iTunes podcast designed to give you the knowledge, inspiration, and action steps to live a life by design, never by default. Tommy's contagious enthusiasm and approach to life can be seen and felt in a wide array of content he creates, including podcasts, books, videos, and courses. As he likes to say, he doesn't have it all figured out, but he loves the process. All of the resources we talk about in today's episode can be found over at thewbh.com/48. And I'd love it if you would share this episode with your colleagues and friends who are also doing the work to become more of who they are meant to be. Get ready to feel inspired and motivated. So without further ado, let's bring Tommy to the show. Tommy, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Lori, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and connect and share with your audience.
I am really excited. I spent several hours going through your book called The 1% Rule, and I was reading it and I was nodding my head. I was like, yes, yes, because there's so many concepts in there that I had to work on. There's so many strategies that until I realized that was what was derailing me, I felt like something was actually wrong with me as myself, as Lori. Like,
Yes.
Maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe, what do I know? Like, I'm just a nutritionist. Like, I can't possibly grow a massive company and do all the things that I want to do in the world. And so it was really reaffirming for me, actually, to go through and read the different strategies and things that we'll dive a little bit deeper into over the course of this episode. But why don't we just start by sharing like who you are and what you do for those people that don't know?
Absolutely. And I did want to say that the reason that you resonated with it was because I was listening to one of your episodes. It was the 5 lessons from 2017. And it was an amazing episode. And literally, like, I'm prepping because I know I'm going to be on this interview. And it's like, if the book had a real life companion, it would be that episode because it was your decade experience, real life experience through challenge, through adversity, through growth and highs and lows and everything that encompassed it. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
So for me, I started out in the fitness industry, and I know a lot of people who listen are either in health or fitness, nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. So I spent a decade in there. I grew a couple brick and mortar retail gyms. And I quickly learned what I was really fascinated by with Lori was, why do 20% of the people get 80% of the results? Why do 20% stick with it and literally transform their lives? And why do the same people on the same program, the same exact prescription, why do they get stuck and spin their wheels? And that's when I realized that my passion, even though early on it was fitness, it was really what was in between the ears. And that's when I sold my gyms and I dedicated myself to working with people for what I call the moment. And the moment is the spark that they get a hint of the vision, the possibility that they unlock. And how do I come in and help facilitate that so they bring that into their lives on a daily basis? And now I work with entrepreneurs in all different spaces.
I love that. It's actually called the Pareto principle. Did you know that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm obsessed with it.
And because people in my community, and I even saw this in my own clinical practice, I was a nutritionist for 7 years, and we would start out with like a group of 10 women and 2 would finish the program.
Absolutely.
Like every 2 or 3 every time. And I see it even in all of my programs now where, let's say, we enroll 100 people.
Yes.
20. Which breaks my heart.
Me too, because we want to see change.
But it follows suit every time. And so as much as it does truly break my heart, and obviously we're trying to get everyone to finish, it actually helps me to not feel like so much responsibility, because it actually is a thing. Like
A
it's a
hundred
big
percent.
thing.
Yeah. And I was actually just having this conversation with somebody else in my space. And I also told them that sometimes that's what people need on their journey. Sometimes they have to not be part of the 20% who actually experience the results. Sometimes they need that, and that's actually perfect for their specific journey as well.
Yes. Okay. That's so true. And that's so good. So your book is called The 1% Rule, which I love. And my whole MO in life is to be part of the 1%. Like, I am determined to live up to my fullest potential. And for me, that's taken on, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, it's taken on like a whole nother level. So tell me what the difference is between what I call like the muggles, like the average person who's like not necessarily settling, but like complacent, and, who maybe isn't part of that 20%, versus someone who is in that 1% category.
100%. And it's so simple. And I just break it down to that the 1%, they harness 3 C's in life. And one is that they have a high level of clarity. And within that clarity comes like just aspirations for something bigger. Like they believe that something out there is possible for them, but they don't just stop there, because the average person would just stop there. Oh, something out there is possible. The 1%ers actually practice clarity every single day. So clarity is number one. Number two, they don't just stop there. They take that clarity and they take consistent progress towards uncovering and revealing that clarity, because clarity is a process. It is an onion. And every time you go deeper, you extract even more. And that's number two. And when you combine clarity with consistency over a long or enough time, you start to gain certainty. And certainty, the way that I define it, is just this inner knowing that you're on the right path. You're on the right path, and the conditions, it's only a matter of time before the conditions start to bear fruit. And that's what I call the 3 C's of the 1%.
I love that. So, and I find that to be very true in my own life and in my own journey. Let's talk about clarity, because I know that when I first started, because I didn't have the, let's say, perspective that I have now, my clarity was clouded. Right?
Yes,
My clarity was like in a box. It
absolutely.
was, you know what I mean? Like, it was in a box. And so I wasn't able to dream as big for myself back then as I am now, because now I have a deeper level of awareness. I hang around really super successful people on purpose.
Yes.
And also, the idea of clarity and expectations and reality. So talk to me about how people just starting out can have deep clarity.
Absolutely. And what I tell people is exactly what you just said, is that, everybody wants to discover their life purpose today. I remember being at an event in Houston, Texas with one of my first mentors. His name was Dr. John DeMartini. And he's like, okay, you guys we did an exercise for life purpose, and you're going to identify in the next hour. And I was like 25 at the time. But I remember looking around at the room, and everybody was kind of like looking at each other, because like we were nervous. Like, how do you define your life purposes in 1 hour? And what I tell people, Lori, is just like you mentioned, clarity is an evolution. So depending on where we are on our journey, we have different vantage points, and different vantage points gives us different perspectives. And so for you, I know if you were just starting out and I brought a massive whiteboard and I put you in a place where I showed you all the stuff that you're doing in your business today, 10 years ago, you would have been, not only would you have not believed that that's possible, you would have been overwhelmed, and you would have never gotten started. So for me, I teach people, well, hey, let's just get started on your first iteration of clarity. Let's put you in a position where you start to answer some questions. You start to create some space to answer those questions. But then tomorrow you wake up and you choose one thing differently. And you and I know, Laura, we can have the greatest plan, the greatest blueprint, but we won't achieve clarity until we start moving into it. And that's when we create, that's when this idea of clarity actually becomes a practice that you and I do every single day.
I love that. And one of the things that I tell my clients all the time when they're starting to create their programs and they've spent, 3 months or 4 months creating this, and then they ask their peers to like evaluate it, and they ask me to evaluate it. And I'm like, no, I'm not your ideal client. The clarity comes from the doing.
Yes.
Right? You have to get the feedback from the actual people who are going to go through your program in order for you to get really clear on what you need to fix to make it better. I can
Exactly.
give you best practices based on experience, but I'm not your ideal client. And the brand and the communication and the style, it all comes from the doing. Right?
Yes.
It all comes from the doing. One of the quotes that I actually wrote down from your book, I'm just going to read it because I loved it, was the first iteration of your goal is never the end result. I wish someone would have told me that. Like,
right?
I wish someone would have been like, you're good, girl. Like, you're fine. Just go with your goal right now because it's not going to be your goal in a year from now. It'll always, there's always a next level. So just stop freaking worrying so much.
Well, and if we have to hit a grand slam, if we have to get it right on the first iteration, that is way too much pressure. And we're already under too much pressure as it is. And what too much pressure ends up leading to is just paralysis analysis. Hey, we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it next month. We'll do it next year. We'll do it next quarter. We'll do it when life isn't as hectic. And you and I know what that means, that we place that on ourselves and we may never pick that up again.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to take clarity. We're going to just like do the thing. One of the things that I see a lot that I wanted to really dive into with you is this idea of expectation versus reality.
100%.
Why don't you tell me what that looks like given, that we're now all like 1%ers?
Exactly. Well, Lori, it's tough because, expectations, many times we have what I call level 10 expectations, which means, hey, we're going to launch our first business. That means we're going to make $20K a month the next month. I actually had a coaching client with me recently and his income goal was around $20K. And he literally said to me recently, he said, when I signed up, I thought my next month I would hit the $20K immediately. And I said, really? Like I had to wait, dig into that for a second. And now he ended up experiencing amazing results, but it took 3.5 months. And so many times we have these level 10 expectations, but our commitments are a level 2. And I know you work with a lot of moms and people have full-time jobs or their schedules are already so busy. And so a level 10 expectation and a level 2 commitment creates the gap. And we have two options in that place. We either lower our expectations and fall in love with smaller progress, smaller goals, and just bring it down, or we raise our commitments. And what we want to create, Lori, is an even space with congruence and alignment between, hey, these are our expectations, but these are also our commitments. And if you stick to your commitments long enough and you harness the 3 C's, you'll start to see your expectations come to life. But like just entrepreneurial marketplace, find your passion, find your purpose, go live out loud. We were just talking, we get to be on podcasts as part of our job, quote unquote, which is really not a job. But it is because we created it. But, a lot of people see that and they say, I want that. But it took you, because I listened to your amazing episode, a decade of commitment to make that happen and a lot of different expectations throughout the way. And so I tell people, hey, let's release the pressure. Let's release the pressure. You're not going to hit a grand slam on your first at bat, right? But let's fall in love with the process. And so the whole book and the whole theme of it is really, hey, let's place our self-esteem around what we can control. We can control what we do today. We can control the 1% that we do today and the 1% that we do tomorrow. And when you add up those across a long enough timeline, they lead to some pretty big results.
I feel like with the introduction, I'm going to say, of like Instagram and Facebook and all of these quote unquote gurus who are, posting success and only shining a light on the good side of things, I feel like, and I love having this conversation, because I feel like the reality of what they're showing isn't actually the reality of what it is in any given situation. Let's say we're talking about weight loss, or we're talking about growing wealth, or we're talking about, flipping houses, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's like, we go into this scenario almost with like rose-colored glasses on.
Yes.
And then it's like the reality of what we've just gotten ourselves into slaps us across the face
100%.
and like throws us down the stairs. Right. And so,
And that's the issue. Exactly the moment that we hit that first adversity, we're very likely to fold if we had those expectations. Because what happens, we say, well, I'm definitely not cut out for it. Well, I'm just not the right person. I can never be an entrepreneur. There's no way I could create a dream business and take care of my family doing stuff I love and travel. And so the expectations, as soon as we hit adversity, we come back down. But if our expectations are tempered and we fall in love with the process and progress, we hit the adversity and we actually say, you know what? I learned something from this. Okay, 2 people showed up at my webinar. One of them was my grandma. Means really one person showed up. That's happened to me. I learned something from this. I did a webinar and nobody showed up. Okay, what can I do better next time? And that's how we really start to find ourselves in this space.
so going from, because this is what I'm so curious about, how do you make that switch in your mind from being, that was a huge failure, no one showed up except my grandma and one random person, to, oh my God, I just did my first webinar and it was great. And 2 people showed up, and maybe I had some tech problems and maybe I didn't, but I just did my first webinar. Like, how do you make that switch in your mind?
To me, I just, and I always remind me and the clients and the people that I work with is that most people are on the sidelines. Most people are on the sidelines watching the game and analyzing the game and criticizing the game and all of that stuff. So if you did the webinar, if you launched the Facebook Live video, if you had the tough conversation that you had, whatever it was, if you simply got in the game, then you're playing with house money and you've already won. Right? If you got in the game, you have to celebrate the fact that you're in the game. And one thing that I do is, I will always go back to people's first iteration of anything. So when I was launching my podcast, I was overwhelmed. I started it 6 months after the time that I said that I would, because I was trying to make it too perfect. And I was trying to set these massive expectations. And so what did I do? I picked the 3 top people in the podcast space, Lewis House, James Altucher, and somebody else. And I just went back to their first iteration. And you know what? It was good, but it wasn't where they were today. So I was able to see in real time, well, I listen to that show right now. It's like insanely produced. It's beautiful. They got like all of these mixes and motivational music and intros and outros. The first version didn't sound that good. It was kind of clunky. Some of the questions weren't amazing. And so it actually humanized some of the people that we put up all the way up here. And I think it's important with something, whether it's a webinar or you want to launch an ebook or a new site, or you're just starting your new business, go look around at some of the people you admire and just dig up some of their first iterations. And you're going to learn a lot about getting rid of this perfectionism and actually getting in the game, because that's when you start to find the silver lining, even if 2 people show up on your webinar.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, okay, go do it again. Maybe 3 people will show up. Like, everything is progress.
100%.
Right? So it's not like you can go back from having done that webinar and like regress. Maybe no one will show up. Okay, fair enough. We've all had that happen, but but that's the thing. It's like, we've all had that happen. Actually, we've all had that happen, and you're still going to do webinars. And so to take the learnings from that, like, tell me a little bit about how you appreciate the progress and how you actually can track the progress. I think you have like an algorithm in your book, like, of actually how to track progress over time.
100%. And the whole kind of theme of the 1% is like, because especially with entrepreneurs and solo people who launch in their own business, they get so overwhelmed because, hey, now we have an abundance of options. We can do anything. We can do webinars, we can launch business, we can do events, we can do a podcast, we can do Facebook Lives, we can do YouTube. And I love just studying human behavior. And in the world of unlimited options, we have, it's a great responsibility to actually focus and pick one. But so the actual 1% is listen, if we just do 1% today, and the problem with 1% in a highlight real world is that it's not going to sell seminars, like a 1%. It's like, you do 1% of your vision today. It's not going to sell out like a dance party seminar, like many of them do. But if you do 1% today and you do 1% tomorrow, over the course of a year, Lori, at the minimum, if you stay consistent, that's 3.65x%. So you can grow your business 3.65x%. You can grow your fitness, whatever it may be. But that's only incremental growth. And you add an exponential growth, which is one of the most powerful forces in the world, which is compound growth, and that turns into 3,700%. So I like my chances. If I just do a simple thing every single day, I can either go from 3.65x% to 3,700x. I'll take anything in between that. And I wanted to give people their power back and simplify the entire process for them.
Yeah, I love that. So what would you say to somebody who is like, okay, I get that. I can do 1% better every day, but what if it doesn't work out for me? Like, what's your response to them? The what if question.
To me, that's just purely a lack mindset question, because you're already choosing to see the glass half full. You're ultimately, what happens is that if that's the mindset that you're going in with it, you and I know, Lori, like, let's just say we're on the topic of webinars. What if it doesn't work out for me is your mindset, then your intention is going to affect your marketing. Your intention is going to affect your intensity of your marketing. Your intention is going to set everything around it. You're going to give yourself a chance to get off the hook. Hey, if I don't see registrations by Tuesday night and the webinar is on Wednesday, guess what? I'm going to cancel it. And so we have to eradicate this what if mindset, and we have to focus on what's in front of us. We have to focus on every single step. Which and we later on in the book we talk about how faith is a muscle. Everything's a muscle. Clarity is a muscle, right? And we have to do it every single day. So faith is a muscle. We have to do it every single day. Putting out your dreams and reaffirming your vision and putting yourself out there, we have to do it every single day. And so within that lies the exact ingredients that we need to start to create this energy that creates momentum in our lives. And I say in the book, the most powerful force in the world isn't some YouTube video. It's not Gary Vaynerchuk. It's none of that. It's progress, or even perceived progress, because in life we have these progress residues, which means that we can be going to the gym for 3 to 4 weeks, and we've all done this, and yeah, we're feeling better, but we're not actually seeing progress. But that's that residue that we have to stay with it, and it's testing us. Are we just interested in it, or we're just in here to get fit, and then tomorrow, and then the moment that we get fit, we're just going to eat pizza all day? No, we're in this for the long haul. Because, and I love the name of the show, what gives our lives meaning is the process of becoming. All of these goals that we create are just, to me, is just answering a question. Okay, who do I have to become to sell out that event? Who do I have to become to build a 7-figure business? Who do I have to become to be on stage with this guy and this guy and this gal and all of that stuff? And to me, that's why we're here, right? The goal is just the goal. It's just the peak of the mountain. But throughout the journey is where we're going to find some of the greatest gifts that we could have never seen if we didn't get started.
Yeah. Talk to me more about what you just said about faith being a muscle, because when I was going through the book and I saw that, I literally stopped dead in my tracks and I wrote it down and I circled it and I have an asterisk beside it, because it never occurred to me in that way that faith, just like anything else, has muscle memory, and faith being a muscle, faith, replace it with belief in yourself, replace it with confidence, replace it with whatever you want. How does someone start to build their faith muscle?
100%. And I just love the analogy of the muscle, which is why I used it, which means that if you don't use it every single day, it starts to atrophy. We start to lose strength. We start to lose size. We start to lose everything about it. And so many times, and I'll work with people who go to these amazing live events and they have this beautiful vision and it's vivid. And in the moment they believe it because their emotional state is a level 10 and they're on fire, and they come home and it's Tuesday morning and they didn't get a lot of sleep and their youngest kept them up all night. And now the dog's going crazy and they're exhausted. And so what happens now? And so to me, I just teach people, hey, every single day, what matters? Yes. What we did yesterday, does it matter? Well, yeah, we can create momentum in life, but at the same time, today's a new day and it's a blank slate, and we have to choose ourselves again. And this is where faith as a muscle comes in. Confidence is a muscle. You reaffirmed your vision once at the live event 6 months ago, but have you done that every single day? Have you taken 5 minutes out of your day to reaffirm the vision? And so what I do for me, just personally, just to give someone an example, I'll take 5 to 10 minutes a day and reaffirm my 1 year vision every single day. And we talked about clarity earlier about being an evolution. Even every time I do that meditation, I see things that I didn't see 2 weeks ago. I see things that I didn't see 6 months ago, just like you were talking. And once we can commit to these small practices, these practices of faith, these practices of self trust, these practices of courage, then we start to shift our awareness. And so in daily life, when we have an opportunity to step into our faith, to step into trust, maybe to not avoid something that we've been putting off, but actually face it head on, we're more likely to follow through. And if we can do that with the little things, Lori, you and I know they start to add up. And the way we do the little things gives us the opportunity. So when the big moment comes, when the really tough, big thing that we have to do comes and we have to show all the faith in the world, hey, we've got a track record. We've done it every single day, at least once a day for the last 2.5 years.
Yes. I call that a good frame of reference.
Yes.
So over time, at least this is how I experienced it, would be like, for me, the universe, like I would take action, probably felt outside of my comfort zone, I would be rewarded.
Yes.
Right? And I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, so next time I would take like a little bit of a bigger action and I would be rewarded. Now, it didn't always work out the way that I thought, and I could have perceived it as failure.
Yes.
But because I'm part of the 1% and I pride myself on that, I was able to look at that and go, okay, what's the lesson here?
Yes.
How do I integrate whatever just happened into the next time? And so then the next time I would do it and the universe would reward me and all of that stuff. So over time, for me, if we take the example of faith as a muscle, over time, I just know that it's going to work out. Even if shit hits the fan.
Absolutely.
I just know that that's exactly how it's supposed to go for me to get whatever it is that I need to get out of it so that the next time I can do better.
There's so many moments along the journey, and I know you've experienced the same. And like for me, just, moments where, along the entrepreneurial journey where, I went to go put gas in my car and the card got declined, and then the next one got declined. And just circumstances like that happen so many times, or a launch just went horrible, or, my first book, like, didn't really sell. But regardless, there was an inner knowing that I was one step closer, that my circumstances didn't define who I was, that my circumstances weren't going to, didn't say anything about the essence of who I was, and they were just temporary. And if I could detach from that, like that's the thing. We say, hey, our launch didn't hit this thing, or our book didn't hit bestseller, or hey, look at my bank account. We start to place our self-esteem around that, and that's a losing battle, because that affects our daily emotional state, and we won't execute unless we really believe and feel like it. And so, I love what you said about cultivating that faith, and that just knowing that, okay, it didn't come in the way that I expect, but I know the next variation is going to come, and that's going to be the one. And to me, this sort of belief has to be cultivated on one's own. You can go to events, you can hire coaches, you can be part of communities, but ultimately it's your responsibility to cultivate this level of belief. And once you have this deep level of belief, like going back, like the universe, so like the universe like won't respond to half-hearted beliefs. It won't respond to 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It won't respond to, hey, I have 11 backup plans just in case this one doesn't work, because you're already going in with that what if mindset. But the moment that you're all in, I was just on a coaching conversation. I said it's binary, 100%. So if you're 97% of the way in, the universe is going to feel that. What if that last 3% was the one that actually unlocked the keys to make it happen? So you got to go 100% and just believe and cultivate that practice.
It is a really, like, let's not, make it sound like, oh, it's so easy, just believe. Like, it's really hard. I think for me, it's the hardest. That's the hardest part about becoming. It's doing the work. It's saying, okay, this is dark. Like, this is dark and this is deep and I don't like it. And it's been lasting for months, but I'm just going to have faith that A, it'll end, and B, there's a reason. And, I think sometimes, at least I've had the experience where like my muggle friends will be like, oh, you're so like up in the sky. You're so airy fairy. Like, you're so optimistic all the time. I'm like, well, I'd rather live in my reality than yours. Like, I'd rather believe in
100%.
magic and faith and all of that stuff than like be miserable and think like the world's out to get me all the time, you
Yeah,
know?
what's the alternative, and ultimately does the alternative serve? And if that serves the things that you want to create in your life and the people and the experiences that you have, then more power to you. But I completely agree. It's like our perception plays such a massive role in the quality of our experience. And at the end of the day, it's like we're here to have the most powerful, connected, loving experience in this game called life. Now, entrepreneurship is such a great tool to facilitate that. And if we can combine both of those, then yeah, like I've been called like annoyingly positive, like many, many times by old social circles and stuff. And you know what? Like as I grew, like, or small comments like, "Oh, must be nice," and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. You know, all the stuff
Love
that we.
that one. Oh, it must be. You're so lucky.
Yeah, no, yeah, so
Yeah,
much.
so lucky.
A decade of
Yeah, 16-hour days. So lucky.
but you know what I did notice, Lori, is as I grew and I continue to put the volume up on my life. I just continued to attract people that were like really wanted that. They were appreciated that. And when I was telling somebody the other day, like, show me the quality of the text that you have in your phone. Are they encouraging? Are they lifting you up? Are they challenge you to be better? Are they inspiring you? Show me your news feed on Facebook. Like, are you following stuff that lifts you up? Show me what you're doing during your free time. And we look at those three things. Those are going to give me a decent prediction on the quality of the life that you're living. And if you're living in a state of negativity, because you and I know scarcity, misery, negativity, they love feeding off each other. And so the moment that we can eradicate that for many people, you start to attract people that are like, you know what? Yeah, Lori, I love
Yeah.
that dream bigger. Let's go get that.
Yeah. One of my best friends has like the news crawl on her TV all the time. And she knows I don't watch the news. I purposefully keep myself in a very happy rose-colored bubble
Yes.
all the time. That's not to say that I haven't experienced really traumatic things, because I have.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, I know that my response to all of that is very different than the average person. I don't watch the news. I don't, like I don't keep up on current events because it's depressing and anxiety provoking.
Yep.
That might make me ignorant. Okay, I'll take it. I'll be ignorant. No problem. I'll take that title right there. Like, but I think because I've chosen to bubble myself, and because I've chosen to believe and to invest in that kind of mindset, I think that I've been able to build resiliency for myself and also thrive throughout the trauma.
100%. And you're also what you've done is, my mentor DeMartini taught me this, is that when you fill your day and you fill your life with high priority items that are tied to your principles and life philosophies and your visions, you don't have much space for anything else. Like, it just, like, it doesn't fit anymore. Like, there's no space left. And what happens, Lori, is that people have so much free space and they don't know where they're going, and they don't have clarity, and they don't reaffirm their vision. They don't strategically put things that helps them in there. And so what's going to happen? Well, nature's going to fill a vacuum, and it's going to put the lowest quality stuff in there. And that's going to be toxic people, maybe environments that don't serve.
The
Um,
news.
yeah, the news, anything scarcity driven,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we're going to focus on. If our awareness is there to, like, start the day, for example, then if I believe that the world is this dangerous and really bad place, et cetera, then I go deep in studying what the news.
Or even like, there's not enough clients. This space is
Yeah,
competitive. Somebody else has already said it better than myself. Like, why
exactly.
would anyone buy from me? That's a choice.
Evidence. What
Yeah.
you're stacking evidence, and we're like the best private investigators on the planet towards stacking evidence on why it can't work for us. Like, that's our status quo, like evolutionary. That's what we're working with. And so we have to know that. We have to break that pattern and say, time out. Time out. I do have a choice here. I can
Yeah.
stack evidence for why it's not going to work out, and I'm going to get the result that it's not going to work out. Or I can choose something different. Tonight, instead of turning on the news, I'm going to flex a little willpower. I'm going to go on YouTube, and I go put on Lori's podcast, or I'm going to listen to somebody in the entrepreneurial space, listen to the School of Greatness. And that's a small shift.
Yeah.
But small
That's a
shifts lead
small
to
shift.
big decisions.
Yep.
Right. And that, maybe an example of that night we have an idea, and the next morning we wake up and we execute on that idea. And 3 months later, it becomes something. But it wouldn't have become something if we didn't just make that small decision in the moment.
Love it. Love it so much. And there's so much truth to what you're saying. And that just brings me to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is this idea of starting, like constantly starting, because it's obvious that if you're going to become part of this like 1% club, um, based off of these disciplines and this idea of like clarity and progress and certainty, you can't always be starting over, right? You can't,
100%.
you can't like pretend like it's a diet and be like, oh, I'll start again on Monday. So how can people go from constantly starting over to maintaining focus?
100%. And I love the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, because it has a quote in there, and she says, anyone can get started, few can endure.
Yes.
And I love that quote because it's so true. Because it's so easy to get a high, dopamine high off starting something, starting the new relationship, starting the new job, starting the new business, starting the new part of our business, right? And we become infatuated with that because it's new, because it breaks the routine, and that signals a bunch of brain chemicals. But the problem is that if we're always starting and we're always stopping and then restarting, so I used to live in the Northeast, and it's much like, I'd have to go out and my car engine would be frozen, and I'd be out there with a debit card and I'd be scraping off snow off the car just to get it rocking. And, you know, every time that takes so much energy, and we miss out on what's possible when we create momentum. Because momentum, to me, is one of the most powerful forces in the world. Momentum is when we stick with something long enough where opportunities start coming out of the woodwork that we never saw. People, places, opportunities, emails, all of this stuff starts to happen. So what I would tell people is to, really fall in love with and find a way to just take one step every single day. I know it sounds so cliche. I know it sounds so simple. But, I used to see this, like you said, in the fitness industry. I had gyms, and these people would crush it Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, gone. Horrible nutrition, horrible diet, lots of drinking. And so by the time they came back to the gym, forget Monday, too tired for that, was like Wednesday. And so they had like 2-3 good days, and then the whole cycle would repeat itself. And so, many times it's just a matter of, okay, can we be focused? And I know a lot of people in your audience and a lot of people that I work with, they say, I don't have enough time. And I say, that's great. That's great that you don't have enough time, because guess what? If you only have 5 hours a week to dedicate to something, you better be laser focused with those 5 hours, because you got nothing more. And I've actually found this is crazy, Lori. I had a client who they had 10 hours a week, and they built a pretty decent side hustle, doing their 10 hours a week. And they thought that once they would eradicate, their main job, which was 40 hours a week, they were like, okay, let me do the math times 4. And so they said, okay, my income's going to increase by times 4. And what happened? They actually saw less results, because they had an abundance of time, and they weren't focused, and they could do everything, and they could go to lunch and connect with someone and get on a conference call for 3 hours and whatever. And so focus, daily focus. And that's part of the 1% rule equation. Every single day, we're just going to do one thing that is not checking email. It's not any of those things, even if those things are required for business. It's one thing that's in the important but not urgent category of your business. And you're going to just do that one thing every single day. And when you do that, that's when you build momentum. But the starting and stopping is one of the biggest ways to momentum.
Yeah, I totally agree. Starting, stopping, or changing plans half the way through because they're like, oh, shiny object, maybe I should try this instead. And it's just, you're ruining momentum, right? You're not consistent in anything. And so it's like a car. Like if you consistently start and stop your car, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to like be in the same spot.
Exactly. And it's funny because I'll have to coach entrepreneurs who they want to start like 9 businesses at once. And like, listen, I get the enthusiasm and I think it's fantastic, but we got bandwidth and capacity that we're dealing with: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And they got to go to buckets. And we got families, and we got kids, and we got wives and
Mhm.
husbands and responsibilities. So you're left with scraps. And if you're giving it away to let's just say like 3 different types of businesses, you're not going to be deep enough to actually see the progress that you're looking for. And you're going to say, well, this doesn't work. It's not the right time. The economy, Trump is ruining everything. I mean, we'll find any excuse, the weather. And so, yes, I love what you said. It's just like, the thing is, focus is not that sexy of a sell.
No.
And Lori, you and I know, no matter how I love what I do in business. Like I love what I do. I love creating content. I love working with clients. I love writing books. I don't I don't rely on my feelings around what I'm doing on a daily basis to show up. You know, when I was writing my book, I'd come to this office and I was here at 3:15 every single morning. Trust me, like that wasn't like a fun experience for me, but I did it anyways. And one of the things that to me holds people back from daily application and consistency, which is part of the 1% rule, is tying their emotional state to actually stepping into what they're looking to create. When actually, when they step into looking to create something with focused purpose, they create their emotional state. In other words, we don't have to wait to feel inspired. We don't have to wait to feel great. We don't have to wait to feel abundant or whatever it may be. Yes, you can create those with the morning routine and all of that stuff, but don't rely on that to execute. Because many times when you execute, and we've all experienced this, a friend calls us, you know, she's in town for dinner, and we really don't want to go. We're like, "Ugh, it's like we just don't want to go. It feels heavy, and we go, and we just had an amazing time, and we connected, and so taking the action or like doing the workout that we didn't want to do, at the end of it, we're like, thank God we did that because now I feel amazing. And that's what I teach people. Don't rely on your emotional state. Work on it, create it, do your best to put yourself in a good position, but still step into something regardless. And many times that's our creative aspect, Lori, that really lights us up. For me, that's writing. I know I can write and I will just feel better after it, regardless if I'm on 2 or 10 hours sleep. And then we go from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And there's plenty of times that I don't want to do things. And I think having short deadlines, accountability, and a purpose, like a focused action that you have to do regardless. And it's like, show up every day to your job like you mean it.
Yep.
Right? It's whether
100%.
it's your full-time job or your part-time job, this is our job. Like this is our job and we asked for this. That's the thing. It's not like, being an entrepreneur and creating your own thing, like you actually asked for this, right?
Yes.
You
It's what
asked
you
for
wanted.
it. So it's like show up every day like you have a boss looking over your shoulder.
And that's what we forget because we have been trained. We go to school, we have teachers, I was actually just working with an athlete, very very successful athlete. They're 35 years old, they have a massive audience, pretty successful business, but so far from the potential. But their whole life they were given a piece of paper that said, you got to go here, you got to go here, this is what you're going to do. And they were involved in the highest level of athletics. And so there's a reason why the work environments, as traditionally, from the corporate work environments and traditional jobs, there's a reason why there's places you have to show up to. There's a reason why there's hierarchy of bosses. There's a reason why there's endless meetings, because we're not good at self accountability. We're not great at self discipline. Nobody taught us these skills really. And so we used to relying on these. And so what happens when we hit that entrepreneurial moment where it's just us, we realize we're not that good of bosses for ourselves, and we have to work on some structure and some discipline. And so it's weird because if entrepreneurs will say, well, Tommy, I don't do calendars, I don't do structure and discipline. I got into entrepreneurship so I could go get a massage at 12 p.m. if I wanted to. And I say, great, that's why I got into it too. But here's the deal: the more structure, the more routine, the more discipline that you create in your day and your day-to-day experience, the more real freedom you get on the other side. Because to me, freedom is not this abundance of time and then being in my mind about what's missing, what I haven't done, how disconnected I am, and how revenue's not coming in. No, that's not freedom. Freedom for me comes, what can I control? How can I move my business and life forward? How can I create structure and discipline around that? And then I have free time. But when I have that free time with family, when I have that free time on date night, it's real free time. I'm not thinking about the business plan anymore. I'm really there. So for entrepreneurs out there, many times it's an issue of structure and discipline and just falling in love with that and realizing that on the other side of that is real freedom.
Love it. That's my favorite quote. On the other side of fear is freedom.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was such a good one. Where can people go to get your book and to find out more about you?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me, Lori. The 1% rule, best place to grab it is Amazon. That's just like where everything happens. You can get it on Kindle or paperback. And then obviously you listen to podcasts. So Resist Average Academy is iTunes, iTunes, Google Play, all that stuff podcast. And we deep dive into some of the same topics that you do.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Everybody, go get the book. It really is amazing. It also has really great practical examples of how to become more disciplined and to get more laser focused and everything that we talked about today. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Thank you.